With Saturn in Aries, the world is entering in an age of new systems, new ways to network, and new ways to associate with others. This in itself can bring new governments, new types of governments, and literally new countries or new ways to run countries. And on a personal level, this can bring new ways to perceive what it means to be rich, what it means to be successful, what it means to be safe and responsible. And that shift will go towards a more spiritual, creative, unique, and individual direction. Before we go deeper into it, this video is sponsored by me, esoteric cloud surfer. I do natal chart readings, tarot readings, dream interpretations, and personal consultations where you can have a one-on-one conversation with me and ask questions or ask for advice. You can check my services on Instagram and ask me directly for a reading using the email all on the links down below. And let's get into it. Because on the negative side, Saturn in Aries can also bring some limits and boundaries that are too dry and that deny too much spirituality, creativity, and uniqueness. Also, more spiritual, unique, and creative endeavors might not feel supported or accepted enough, and changes towards governments, organizations, and just structures in general might be too much opposed or too limited or not supported because they don't seem real or sufficient or efficient enough, and that's normal because it's very much in the start. It's just a spark, just a vision. But it's important to allow those things to be present, at least in our mind, in our imagination, and in our beliefs. And the key point of this video is also how this alignment, Saturn in Aries, especially now that the Sun is in Aries, we're bringing more focus and attention to those areas. So with Saturn in Aries, more frustration, more aggressiveness, and more rebelliousness and redness can show up towards against governments and big organizations or big corporations. And it's very important because we are in big times of change. Pluto is in Aquarius, for an example, and in the last couple months, a lot of conspiracy theories were proven to be truthful when it came to the darker sides of the government and a lot of bad things that some people at top of the government or just in the government or associated with the government were doing. And I have nothing against governments themselves. I know there are some great people, some good people working in the government and they really want to help people, but recently, like I said, we've been exposed to the darker parts, and for many years, some people already knew about it, or at least they had a lot of reasons to not trust the government. But in the end, we need some type of government to govern ourselves and to protect each other from scammers, from aggressive people, for an example. But right now it's normal that frustration and aggression towards government and big organizations, it's totally normal to be arising. Not only we're exposed to some weird things, we are also constantly exposed to corruption and misusing of governmental funds and taxpayer money. Also big corporations are not really treating the world and people well, even when it comes to spaces like gaming and entertainment, right? And everything now with the AI bubble, where prices of computer parts are getting very, very high, for an example, this all brings the message that big corporations are using their power and their money to wrongdo people and the common folk. And I want you to keep in mind that those big corporations and those big governmental entities, they are very powerful indeed, but they're not as powerful as they want you to think they are. Because in the end of the day, if you think about it, those governments, those organizations, they're using their power, they're using their money, they have networks, they have organizations, they have associates that do things for them. And in the end of the day, the people, the masses, they're not doing that. They're not using their power, they're not coming together to change things into changes that are more accordingly, that are more connected to personal interests, personal desires, and personal insecurities. So in the end of the day, the power gap seems big because one side is using their power actively and the other side is not yet. Because we can already see some steps and some sparks forming and already reaching certain public recognition. And I'm totally empathic with the feeling of frustration and aggression towards the governments and organizations or even the world itself. But by being a spiritualist and by learning from other spiritualists and the world itself, I came to different conclusions because I know that we need a change. The world, or the modern world, needs a change because the world in itself, if we think about it, the planet Earth, it's a very bountiful world. A lot of life forms share this world in their own cycle. It's full of life, full of different little interesting changes or massive changes as well. So the world itself is not bad. It's how the modern world, especially in the West and in some cases in the East, came to be. So in the end of the day, we do need a change. But I came to a different conclusion than immediate and direct fighting, because it's all about creating new systems and new ways to perceive reality, structure, limits, boundaries, responsibility, and organization. It's much better to create new systems or to bring innovation, spirituality, and care about the individual to certain systems and organizations that are already up and running. Because if the people create their own systems and they start working, the systems start to be sufficient and successful, the governments and those big corporations will have no other choice but to participate as well. Of course, at the start, they'll try to stop it, undermine it, and give them bad reputation so other people can hate on them as well, on those new projects or new individuals. But in the end of the day, they'll have no choice but to participate because the people in reality run this world. The people that are not those in the positions of power, quote unquote, are way more numerous and they have so many more resources than the governments and the big corporations. If all the people came together with their resources, they will be way more powerful than the powers that be. So instead of fighting the government and big corporations, it's more effective to create new systems, new governments, or new organizations that are more local, more personal, more spiritual, and that have creativity in them, or they support creativity around them. In order for this to happen, people need to rely a bit less on the government and be less fearful about new things or instability, or thinking that if they take certain risks or if they challenge certain aspects of the status quo, they will be homeless and nobody will accept them. No, that's not for right now. Right now, the fear should be about not having freedom, not having the ability to choose, not having the ability to think for yourself, not having the ability to be yourself even, because that's more important than not having bread on the table. Those things are very important, but we already fought for stable life, comfort, and accessibility. Now it's more about going above that and allow ourselves to expand on different levels. And the side note is that some people, they go against or they see in bad eyes other people that try to innovate or bring more spirit, more art, more creativity, or even different ways to rule, different ways to apply laws and to go about business, lawmaking, trading money and trading goods. Some people look at those innovations or at the people or groups themselves that are bringing those innovations, they talk bad about them. Oh, see, they have this weird idea. Oh, they tried and they failed. And what happens is that if that keeps going with some people, those people will always end up going back to needing the government and really being very attached to the government while complaining about the government, while complaining that taxes are too high and the roads are not fixed. So it's way better to put a bit more faith and trust in other people, in more local networks, and then if that fails, at least you participated in something, at least you tried something new, at least you didn't went back to the place that you already know you would end up complaining. Because in the end of the day, it's okay to not like the people or the organizations bringing those weird new ideas forward, but it's not okay to hate or to feel uncomfortable about the act of innovation or spiritualization itself, because it was people allowing other people or groups that were soulless or that had only in mind business and number goes up goes brrr, or people that didn't care about morals, didn't care about community, didn't care about art, spirituality, and deeper things in life. It was people mostly for accessibility, for fear, or for not knowing better, people back in the day allowed those organizations and those certain peoples in government to come to power. And that was the cause, because people were not really caring about spirituality, creativity, art, communal effort, personal and individual growth, knowing more about themselves and the universe, or just about life in general, right? Because people were focused on surviving or getting a house, and that's completely okay. That's why I said earlier, right now it's not the time for that. That already happened. Most people in the modern world, they don't go through catastrophic situations, that are not homeless or they're not on fent or anything. They already have a house and a stable income, even though it might be difficult right now. If like here in Portugal 50 years ago, my grandmother, she didn't went to school, she had to stay home to take care of the kids. There was like no roads, no public light, no public lights, because we were under a dictatorship. So especially here in Portugal and in other countries around the world, the shift is really, really big, where people were really struggling and now they were able, through very hard work, to achieve some security. So now it's time to go a little above beyond that and fight for more spiritual rights than more physical rights. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not hitting on the masses or on the old generations, because I recognize and I know for a fact that the older generations fought and worked really, really hard to give the next generations a better future and better living conditions. Many older generations sacrificed even their sanity, their body, and their minds, because they got so tired and so focused on working and surviving, just for their kids to be able to go to college or to have a car when they had on their 20s or something. So I really recognize that effort, and I'm not dismissing that. That's why once again I said it's not the time for that right now, because it was already going on. So in the end of the day, it's in the power of the people, with their money, their attention, with their time, and with their energy, to be in or to support more soulful business, organizations, or individuals, and to really look a bit more for not the big movies, the big celebrities, the big shows that everybody talks about, just for an example in the realm of entertainment, and celebrate even, take chances to your curiosity and watch smaller content creators, watch smaller indie developers on video games, for an example, or indie movies. Go to non so known restaurants and shops. Go to the weird new bar that is trying a new idea out. This is the perfect time to be a part of those situations. And that's a great point to then actually take that to the more spiritual or worldwide level, because, like I said, because it's all about coming more together, and right now with Saturn in Aries, creating new systems and creating new ways to use those systems and to use power and governance to a better purpose. In general, people need to care more and bring more of their own energy to the world around them, literally to your surroundings, than rather to the world in general. And this goes also with discontentment and rebellious energy. And when I say the world around you, that doesn't mean literally the world around you and your neighborhood. It can mean people that share interests with you on the internet, or certain companies or organizations that you do business with that might be in another country, but they are around you. You know, like they have the similar ideas, similar goals, similar morals, so they are around you. You know what I'm saying? And let me give you some examples. You, together with your neighbors, with your friends or family, can create local farms, local neighborhood watch if you feel your neighborhood is not safe. You can create local daycares where, imagine, you come together with your money and you pay one of your friends' wives or their sister or their younger kids that are already a bit responsible, and you pay them to take care of your kids instead of a daycare, because it might be too expensive or not safe or for whatever reason, you know. Just by being more local, it will be better. Also, you can create local banks, quote unquote, because instead of trusting your money with a bank, you'll just give it to somebody that you trust, put it in a, like, this needs to be done with trust, right? This, I'm not saying to do this with random people in the internet or around you, but it is better, or this is the good time to start on those things. And keep in mind, to start, this is the time to start, not the time to achieve now a perfect community. Of course, it's possible, but the focus would be on starting, taking chances, taking steps, allow your imagination to go a bit further, allow you to see yourself more together, more local. Because then, if you guys create local farms, local banks, local daycares, local stuff, even local restaurants that are really local and people work there, also go and eat there. I saw a great idea on the other day, which was this local shop where people would take turns, like once every 3 weeks, as somebody would go work in the store, and then they would work in the store selling stuff to other workers slash customers, and then they would be the ones to choose what food would come into the store, what goods would come into the store. Because they work there, all of them together, they didn't have to pay salaries and social security, for an example, so they could use more money for paying the light bill and sending some more biological foods into the store, for an example. That's a great idea. That's a great example of what needs to be a bit more. Because if you think about it, in the last decade or so, there was also many cases of big corporations or big franchises taking over the local communities. We can see that in the housing market, a bunch of houses being bought that then the rent is so high nobody can actually live in them. You see a lot of supermarket chains taking over local business and local grandpa and grandma shops. Even on the agriculture area, big corporations taking over massive bits of land. You know what I'm saying? And for example, when I said local farms, that doesn't mean if you create a local farm together, it's gonna be enough to feed all of your families. No, it's just to bring some more independence to you, bring a sense of community together, because then working together, being a part of something together, sharing complaints, sharing ideas, sharing dreams together while you work on the field or while you're planning the next step to expand the farm, for example, those things are priceless. And that's what brought the human civilization to the power to evolve, to ability to evolve to where we stand right now. And for example, as well, when I say about the local bank, it's like you guys imagine your neighborhood or with your friends, you come together with some money and you then pay somebody or you yourselves fix the road that had potholes for 10 years, or you guys finally take care of a part of the neighborhood that was not used or not fixed for a while. You know, a bit things like that, instead of just having your money rotting away in the bank. Or maybe you have some investments, like you invest a bit less, but you invest in yourself and in the community around you. That is priceless and will be paid back to you for sure. And like I said earlier, this is just the start. So weird things can happen, trust can be lost, money can be lost, projects might fail, but now it's way more about having good visions, having good actions in good faith, rather than to achieve physical richness and stability. Most people, or some people, might think that, oh, I already have a job, I'm too tired to do something else. And that's just like going to the gym. People that don't go to the gym, they will think, oh, I already have a job, I already have so much on my plate. If I go to the gym, I'll be even more tired. But people that go to the gym, they actually know that by going to the gym, they get more tired in the moment, but then they are fresher and they have more energy to go through, to act throughout their days, and they can even rest better and sleep better. Because when you do good individual spiritual work, when you work for all possibilities and with all possibilities in your mind, and you work for your community and for your local network, that energy will come back to you as well, and you'll feel more fresh, more revigorated. When you do quote unquote God's work, your spirit feels liberated and it creates and channels more energy. So at first you might get more tired and it might be difficult to get the scheduling going right, but if you keep all possibilities in your mind and in your heart, you and the community will develop better scenarios, better scheduling, better ways to share money. Because imagine if you work for a company, you don't really have flexibility on your schedule every day at the same time. If you're sick, you have to call in sick and things happen. But when you come together with a more local group, you can work things out. Like John knows that you need to pick up your kid at 6, so it's okay for you to come in late. Like things like that. Things like people work a bit more because I got you today, because you have to go to your football club or with your kid to the cinema. I don't know, because it's local and it's the focus, it's not business or money or numbers go up, go brrr. People are way more willingly to give and to receive to each other. Also, do not limit yourselves to what you don't have right now, and don't stay in the limitations. For example, I was talking about the local farms, but if you and your friends or you and your neighbors don't have land right now to start a local farm, that doesn't mean you will never have that possibility. You have to keep believing and keep trying different things to make yourselves a bit more sustainable and a bit more independent. Because sometimes just going for that energy will give you more energy for other areas and will make you see yourself and the world in the better way. On another note, this is very, very important. Fighting the government and big corporations directly will make it easier for them to attack the people back under justification, maybe using martial law and their own court system. It's all about changing what it means to be successful and stable, what it means to be afraid of not having money or status, what it means to be unique, to be individual, to be spiritual, what it means to standing on business and standing on your moral code. Because really, think about it. Why do soldiers go to war? Why terrorists do terrorist acts? Why people that were working for the weird trafficking system in the government, if you know what I'm saying, why were they on the streets recruiting models, quote unquote, if you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not talking about the people that were on the files, I'm talking about the people that were not on the files, the people that worked for them. Why did they do that? You know what I'm saying? Why the pilots of the pilots of the airplanes that seed cloud or spread chemicals in the air, why they do that? You have to think about it. Why that person goes into the plane and do what they're told? Because they're not the ones coming up with those ideas. You know what I'm saying? People recruiting models for the people in the files, they didn't came up with that idea of let me start this system of recruiting models for the governmental agency, if you know what I'm saying. Like, there is something behind that. There is a cause, there is a source, and it's they want money, they want status, they are in a weird religion or in a weird cult. That's why I said what it means to be on your moral code and to be spiritual, because if you spiritual you will never participate in those things, not even by ignorance, because your spirit will tell you that something is wrong with those associations and you will back away from it, or you will lose the job, you will be bad at the interview for the job to avoid those weird circumstances. So being more spiritual, being more real, and being a part of business, infrastructure, network, and association will make also more difficult for weird things to happen in governments, because people do working for the government, people working in those organizations will not do these weird things just because of money, just because of status, because of their weird cult or weird religion. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because in the end of the day, those people are afraid of not having money or status, they're afraid of the unknown, being homeless for an example, or they are indoctrinated with fake religion and fake spirituality. So they think that gaining power or helping somebody gaining power through those weird rituals, for an example, or helping somebody achieve a political role of importance, they think that's righteous. So if fear of not having money or status did not exist, for an example, if fake religion and spirituality did not exist, the dark parts of the government and big corporations would have no minions to make it work, because in the end of the day, it's not the politicians or the leaders of the dark parts of the government that do those weird things. They tell somebody to go and do it. Like they tell somebody to go grab coffee. They tell somebody, I need this specific type of model for my agency, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? I hope you get the example, right? Of the files of the dude on the island, you know what I'm saying? Of the Epstein files. I don't know why I'm being so cryptic about that, about this. It's public information, you know what I'm saying? But they just tell somebody else to go and do that. So why the people do that? Why they go and recruit children for the weird rituals? Why they go and trick parents or convince parents to let their children go? That's a true question. And that's because all of old ways to perceive what it means to be successful, powerful, religious, or spiritual. And that is changing right now as we speak. You know what I'm saying? We are on the note also talking about fighting the government and whatnot. Please don't go looting on protests. That's really bad. That just gives more justification for the law enforcement to act upon the people, like it happened in New York a couple years ago. There was a protest about something, and then fight started, and then you had people looting random stores, puppet mom stores for no reason. Like, that's just silly. That just gives more reason for people to hate on each other, so that then they don't come together, and that gives more reason for the government and law enforcement to rightfully, in that case, act upon the people. And this is the end of the video. In the end of the day, the most important thing to do right now is to change how you see yourself, how you see the world and the powers that be, especially change what you see to be possible or not when it comes to a better, more communal, community based, and more spiritual world. Because right now it's really about creating new visions, new actions, new desires, new aggressiveness, new frustration, or new passion about structure, organization, responsibility, limits, and boundaries. And Aries, it's all about uniqueness, individuality. So it's time to create systems, organizations, and way to govern yourself and the world around you that are more unique, more individual, more personal, that have more creativity, spirituality, and that are way more community based. Because in the end of the day, we have Saturn in Aries and Pluto in Aquarius. Those alignments bring a huge sense of rebelliousness, opposition, fighting against something, but on the other side, they also bring innovation, freshness, and uniqueness and individuality. And it's way better to focus on that and create a new system, create a new organization, create a new way to be rich and successful than fight the old ones. Thank you very much for watching. Your support is greatly appreciated. Leave a like and subscribe. And I wish you the best thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions, and a whole bunch of individuality, creativity, and responsibility as well. Stay healthy, stay hydrated, believe in yourselves and in all possibilities, and I'll be back for more spirituality and astrology. See you soon.